Okay, our next speaker is Marc Siry. He's the Vice President of Strategic Development with Comcast Business. And Marc, the floor is all yours.
Thanks, John. I love your studio back there. As you can tell, I enjoy mobility myself, although it's a little more of the high-speed two-wheel kind. So anyway, I want to thank the Detroit Regional Chamber and Mich Auto for having us here today. It's an honor to be here representing Comcast and NBC Universal. Excuse me. I'm excited to talk about how connecting our communities to the information, resources, and talent they need to flourish will help Michigan and the Detroit region to continue to lead innovation in mobility. You may find this surprising, but Comcast's connection to mobility stretches back to the very roots of the founding of our company. They're intertwined. In the early 1960s, a businessman named Ralph Roberts visited Tupelo, Mississippi to investigate a new business opportunity called community antenna television. This was an early precursor to cable TV, where entire communities shared a common antenna and the television signals were delivered to their homes over a wire. It was a revolutionary, untested business at the time. What convinced Mr. Roberts that the business had a future was when he saw the company's installation vans, and there's an image of one here, driving down the streets of Tupelo, with people swarming out of their homes and chasing those vans, because they wanted this new innovation. They wanted this way to connect to the content they wanted. Catching those vans was the key to making that connection. Needless to say, that was the beginning of the company we now call Comcast. Now, it may seem to be a stretch to credit a 1956 Chevrolet 3100 panel van with the creation of Comcast, but in reality, telecommunications and personal mobility are closely intertwined. Nothing describes the consumer coming of age in the 20th century better than cars and television, really. Over the years, both industries have grown enormously, prospered, and evolved in the face of disruptive change. I'm pleased to report that today we are better poised than ever to support each other's transformative efforts into the future. So just as the auto industry and the entire Detroit region have evolved, Comcast has evolved since those early days in Tupelo. And we're now much more than a cable TV company. I am now going to go through every single logo. No, actually, I'm not. With the broader view of this business here, we're thinking bigger about how we can be a bigger part of supporting this region's mission to be the undisputed leader in mobility. Everyone on this call today knows that leading in mobility will take participation from all parts of the community, government, business, academic institution, and residents alike. And that's because really achieving the dream of next generation mobility will require more than just really smart cars. It's going to require a complete rethinking of how infrastructure of the region supports this coming revolution. So we're going to all need to work together to drive change at every level of this stack. And I've got a slide here with a stack of things that we've got to do, basically. We think at Comcast, our best area of contribution starts with connectivity, both literal in terms of wires and wavelengths, and more importantly, the human connections that technology empowers, and the ability to help people achieve their potential, which in turn drives success for the region. With increased connectivity, you're going to see new economic models to support different modes of mobility and autonomy. You just need to look at the myriad of ride-hailing, scooter sharing, instant delivery, you name it, businesses that have emerged in a connected world. I remember the old days when you had to call a phone number and you spoke to a taxi dispatcher to get a taxi, and then you waited and you hoped they showed up. Ride-hailing apps change this by allowing you to become that dispatcher and take more control of the process. And I think we're going to see a lot of change along those lines, control and connectivity. And when you talk about these changing business models, one that looms large for both this region and the country as a whole, in fact, the whole world, is electrification. I loved Michael's talk earlier. It was really super interesting about this. On a community level, though, electrification is going to require changes in the way we deliver, manage, store, and even measure energy in our communities. Of course, there's a lot of talk about whether the grids are even up to the challenge of electrification. At Comcast, we know firsthand that the grids could use a lot more instrumentation. In some places, Comcast knows more about power outages than the electrical utility itself does, because we can detect when our equipment in homes and businesses goes offline in a manner consistent with a power outage. Pretty interesting stuff, and we're starting to do a lot more with that. So hand in hand with electrification comes autonomy, of course. We've seen a lot of innovation in this space, and I'm excited to see what the smart people on this call are going to do in the next few years around that area. And certainly, you need 4G and 5G wireless connectivity to have real-time communication with vehicles. But there's a big difference on the level of reliability and connectivity you need for watching videos on your phone versus managing collision detection between autonomous and driver-steered vehicles. So we're really focused on private networks that have the security, low latency, and the wide area coverage that these vehicles are going to need. We're fortunate to have assets in our own portfolio, like theme parks and stadiums, where we can eat our own dog food and test these things out before we go out and do this work with our partners. So obviously, government and regulations are going to need to adapt this and support this revolution. And I think that we're also going to have to focus on sustainability. People are going to have to understand why all these changes are good for them and how it's going to improve their communities. To that end, Comcast is working on a big project to electrify our fleet of ubiquitous tech vans. And we're looking for partnerships. And I know that we have a lot of partnerships in the area here to help us not only on the vehicle side, vehicle side, but also on the charging infrastructure that's going to be necessary. So what does this all mean? This all kind of rounds out to a smart city strategy, right? Even though it's really about systems that are connected for critical information to flow from where it's created to where it's needed. And on the infrastructure side, certainly that means the entire stack ranging from fiber connectivity to different types of wireless connectivity, including IoT, low-powered networks, ubiquitous Wi-Fi coverage, and the private networks I mentioned based on CBRS spectrum and other frequencies, which are key to enabling all of these different activities and business models and connections. It takes a lot of planning on a community level to make sure that these changes benefit everyone. And that leads me to the critical factor I mentioned before, the human element of connectivity. You can build all the connectivity you want, but it won't have the desired effect unless the people who need it most can access it. The tech revolution has had many benefits, but one downside is the creation of a digital divide where people with connectivity resources are able to access resources that others can't, leading to growing inequity in our communities. At Comcast, we've been addressing the digital divide for a decade now with our Internet Essentials program that provides low-cost internet to deserving residents, as well as content to help with digital literacy and skills-based training to help people cross that divide and access new tech-forward career skills. We all need to invest in making sure this revolution brings everyone along with it. By its very nature, contemplating how connectivity and mobility are going to improve the quality of life in our communities, we have the opportunity to build the fundamental values of diversity, equity, and inclusion into the coming revolution. We feel Detroit has a unique opportunity where folks who are trained here actually have a set of thriving, growing, and evolving industries that they can then participate in. These industries can be part of bringing their skill levels up or reskilling people in the cases where jobs and industry are changing. With the right focus, that homegrown talent can stay in the Detroit area and in Michigan and contribute to this revolution to build this bold new future and then realize its benefits. So our goals are really connecting our communities and making sure the infrastructure is there to support this revolution. That's why we're launching lift zones across the communities all over the country, including here in the Detroit region. We're working with regional partners to light up spaces and for free Wi-Fi access. We're excited about the program, and we're actively looking for partners, both private and public, to help us expand it. We think that this region really has unparalleled resources between the OEMs, the suppliers, tech companies, academic institutions, and even iconic cultural landmarks. It's really unparalleled. You all here in the Detroit region have that vision to be investing in this future and understanding what it's really going to mean on a community level. Together, we can be well positioned to contribute to, as well as take advantage of these changes coming down the pike. We are really looking forward to partnering with the Detroit Chamber and everyone in the whole Michigan area to make sure that this revolution proceeds forward for everybody equally, and everyone gets a chance to benefit from these enormous changes that are coming. So with that, I would like to thank the Detroit Regional Chamber. I'd like to thank Mish Auto, and my coworker and I would like to thank all of you for your time today here. It's been a fantastic experience, and we're really looking forward to what our partnerships will bring. Thanks.
Thanks for that, Mark. I love your remarks because they tied in with everything we've been talking about of the future of mobility in Michigan. Number one, the state's got to do more on the basics: education, K through 12, and infrastructure. Michael Robinet laid out the groundwork for us here of what we've got to be looking for. A lot more consolidation in this industry, and we're going to see huge disruption in the investment that we've already got in combustion technology. Allie laid out, hey, the workplace is changing, and COVID has really accelerated that. And she laid out certain things of what companies have to consider in figuring out the new way of doing things. And I loved what Mark just had to say. And starting off with that history of, the community antenna, I wasn't aware of that. That's really good. But investment in infrastructure, and I love the idea of making free Wi-Fi available. We have a national highway system. We should treat Wi-Fi the same way as we treat that. That wraps up my remarks, and now we're going to hand over the program for the concluding remarks.